Well, in the fairy tale, of course, the golden goose that laid the eggs that would make a person rich for life, right? But in 2019, the golden goose is a humble sneaker. Yep, and it's going to cost you about 700 Aussie dollars, and they're absolutely flying off the shelves.
Yeah, but who's buying them? Well, the answer apparently is millennials, and it's part of a new wave of luxury spending. Emily Jacks, a millennial expert at HR Gurus, joins us now from Melbourne to help us understand it all. Emily, thank you for being with us. If we could just start with these shoes, because $700, it certainly took us by surprise. The golden goose sneakers, is this a bit of a thing? Like, is this more widespread than we realised?
Oh, I think that would be a small proportion of millennials that are buying these $700 sneakers. I mean, I'm not buying them, I'm not a millennial. But yes, luxury items seem to be the biggest trend for young people these days. They have high disposable income. According to my research, over half of millennials are now 30 plus. So they're all on, you know, in the later stages of their career, and they have a lot of money to spend, and they're spending it on $700 sneakers, apparently.
And as they do it, they kind of forge these new status symbols, which, you know, surprise and, well, confuse, I suppose, like the sneakers. There's kind of general trends that we can identify. I mean, you've done the research. Tell us what you've found. But the ways that the younger generation is spending money in the luxury space, what have you learned?
Well, they're all about the experience. So I have friends that are millennials, and they have a pact with each other. For birthdays from now on, they only buy each other a shared experience. They recently went to a winery and spent about $2,000 on a helicopter ride. So this is a really big trend with millennials and younger people, is this whole experience.
One other one we were talking about today is around brand ethics, and we come up with a lot of these. We're coming up and meet a lot of these business owners and startup, you know, entrepreneur types that kind of really capitalising on this thing that your brand needs to stand for something. How are you seeing?
Correct.
Yeah, both sides, millennials demanding that and companies responding?
Of course. So yeah, millennials are really about their values, and they want to buy things that are aligned with their values. So socially conscious or ethically sourced products are really important to them. If you think about companies like Thank You Water that are now, you know, branched out into Thank You Everything, that's a really good example. That company was actually started by a millennial. So these millennials understand the trends, and what they're finding is if there is no product that satisfies their particular need or their market, is they're creating their own.
Mm.
Yeah, it's interesting. The $2,000 helicopter ride as an experience, that sounds like it goes hand in hand with social media. How important is being able to Instagram your experience to the whole millennial economy?
Definitely. So it's all about sharing that experience on social media, and it's about keeping up with the Joneses. And that leads me to my next point. What they're really looking for is, you know, showing everyone that they're buying these particular brands, and renting couture handbags and dresses is also another industry. People are up for sharing things, which I find quite bizarre. Renting a dress for an event on the weekend just to be seen in it and posted on social media with the selfie. That's also a massive trend that we're seeing with consumer spending with millennials.
Yes, and there was this example of the Russian company that Chris was talking about with our team today. That Russian company who allowed, you know, millennials to basically come, take a snap in front of your private jet, pretend it's your own, put it on social media, and there you go. Access for all, but also the ability to post it all over social media.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, if you think about the Fire Festival, that was another thing that happened recently that really illustrates this whole move towards this influencer phenomenon, where, you know, people heard that Kylie Jenner were going to this event, and that's why they went. And, you know, the organizer told everyone they'd be arriving on a private jet. It was a crappy plane. So this is really playing into the market of millennials.
So that was a particularly catastrophic and hilarious example, which we saw the documentary there. I suppose a question that people might have at home is the way that millennials are spending their money in this luxury way, is that different from how previous generations were spending their money when they were this age?
I don't think so. I think that now we just have social media to prove that they're spending money on these luxury items. I do think that millennials prioritise spending money on luxury goods maybe more than other generations. They've stayed at home longer. They have savings. According to the research I've done, staggering 48% of millennials have bought their first home, and 23% have 30k plus in savings, which absolutely shocked me. So I think they're a lot more financially savvy than we give them credit for. And I think that a lot of them have a side hustle. So this whole hustle culture, Gary Vee, I don't know if you've seen anything about him, he's really pushing this thing that, you know, if you want to get ahead in life, you need to work really hard and hustle. So we're seeing a lot of millennials working their 9 to 5, but also having a side hustle. There's a lot of entrepreneurial millennials out there, and I think the new trend is that they're all going to be starting their own businesses and really catering to this new market of luxury goods and using Instagram and social media to do it. So good on them, I say.
Interesting. So quite financially savvy, but it doesn't seem to go hand in hand with being, you know, necessarily less reckless, because then where we started the conversation is a $700 pair of sneakers. It's hard to marry the two concepts for me. I can't work that out.
I think that a lot of the stats and a lot of the people that we're reporting on are actually a minority. I think that millennials, yes, they do behave in different ways to other generations, but I think a lot of the focus is really on the negative and sensationalising this whole thing that they love spending, and they love spending on Afterpay. But I think that they're growing up, they're getting much more savvy with property and finances, and I think, yes, there are a small proportion who love this luxury goods market, but there is still a good proportion who, you know, are saving to buy a home, and they you know, have a side hustle, and they're trying to get ahead and they're working really hard.
Emily, you mentioned there that a lot of these millennials will be the type to start their own business. Do you think that you know, speaks to any of the stuff that we've sort of mentioned here, or is it just that they, I mean, are part of a generation where that's more available to them, or is it that they don't make as good employees, they don't take direction quite as well as previous generations?
That's a really good question. I think that millennials are kind of fed up with the way that they're being treated in the workplace. I do a lot of work with millennial leaders who have just been appointed into leadership positions. I do a lot of work with millennials who've left corporate because they don't want to work there anymore, because they feel like they're actually treated not very nicely. I spoke to a millennial today who said that millennial shaming was actually a horrible thing that was happening every single day, and some of the older generations were, you know, calling them, their behaviours millennial-esque and making fun of them, and that's just really creating a lot of conflict and friction, which means that millennials are like, why would I stick around and work really hard in this type of culture? I'm going to do it for myself. So I think that that's kind of driving this push. I think they are quite risk-taking in their behaviours, and that really suits the entrepreneur. So good on them. I think that they're going to make a massive difference. By 2025, they're going to make up 2/3 of our workforce. So, you know, they're going to be running our country soon, which I think is a great thing.
Oh, Emily Jacks, so insightful. Thank you very much. From HR Gurus, their millennial expert. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.